How's it going out there? It's June 9th. I'm Frank Curzio, host of the Wall Street Unplugged podcast, where I break down the headlines and tell you what's really moving these markets. I want to start off by saying I am wearing my Utah Jazz jersey given to me by my buddy Chris. I guess a new thing here, if you watch our Curzio Research YouTube page, that people are sending me jerseys. I had a Penn State shirt, so if you have your favorite team, want me to wear it, want me to mention your name, feel free. I always wear jerseys all the time. Don't get expensive ones. It's just kind of like a joke or a running joke. But the jersey he bought me 2 weeks ago is Donovan Mitchell. I don't know if you saw the game. Most people on the East Coast don't watch the Utah games because they go off at 10 p.m. and end at 1 a.m. Donovan Mitchell, 45 points. Unbelievable performance, 32 in the second half. They were down by 13. This guy is an absolute superstar. It is exciting to watch. I know some people hate the NBA because of political reasons going on, but this year's playoffs with the Nets, everything is cool. So anyway, wearing the jersey out of respect. And Chris, thank you for getting me the right jersey at the perfect time because he had an MVP-like game. He should have been MVP actually this year. Very, very close. Djokovic won it. Good for him. Anyway, I want to say this because I've been mentioning my adventures in buying a car since my lease was up, and I just finally bought a car this weekend. It's a 2021 Denali. So my wife and I took the whole weekend to go to about 10 different dealerships, and we really got lucky. Went to one in Jacksonville, GMC. They just happened to get in 3 new Denalis, 3 different colors, and they came in the night before, so they weren't listed on the website or anything. And man, did I get banged out. The amount of fees that they charge right now, and you're paying sticker, I mean, it's incredible, right? It's man, these guys are just making a fortune. Probably an extra $1,500 in fees. And you can't say, hey, man, F you, I'm not going to do it, because you're not going to get a car. My lease was up. You guys know we're talking about this, and just looking at dealerships, talking about the inside scoop, what's going on in the auto industry. There's no inventory anywhere. They gave me a delivery fee of $750, and I asked, I said, delivery fee, what's that for? And he said, well, it's delivery of the vehicle and cleaning and getting the car ready, prepping. And I said, you're not delivering it to anyone. I'm here. I'm at the dealership. You're not delivering it to my house. You didn't get it from someplace else. I came here. It was here and I bought it. And cleaning, it's a brand new car. And he was like, I know, it's the dealership, I said, okay, just tell me it's like an FU fee. I mean, I'd have more respect for you. Just be honest. But for me, I hate shit like that. Or companies that are not upfront with their customers. I mean, there's nothing worse than buying something only to realize a day later what you bought was a piece of garbage. Or the service you were promised was all BS. Like, for example, gone the whole weekend, most of the weekend, with my wife, trying to get a car was, it's never really fun, right? The whole process and everything. And we didn't spend time with the kids for the week because we were looking for a car. So Sunday afternoon, we decided to go to Adventure Landing in Jacksonville. Yeah, just my wife, my 2 kids, and that's a water park. My daughters love that stuff. I like it too. They're 10 and 13. And we have annual passes, so it was cool. We were able to go like late in the afternoon and has a wave pool, slides, went to late afternoon, but it wasn't really that crowded, so you can get on all the rides. It was a lot of fun. And we're at the water park for about 3 hours. And inside, they have an arcade. And when you say arcade, you think Dave & Buster's. I mean, similar to Dave & Buster's, where you play, you get tickets, and you get prizes. Except, almost every single game was broken. I mean, they must have 35 games there. 25 were broken. I mean, they're all on. It's not like they're shut off and broken. No, you put your money in and I mean, they're so old, these machines. They actually distribute physical tickets, which you have to carry around after each game you play. You go to Dave & Buster's, it automatically gets loaded on your car. You're not carrying stuff all day. I mean, think of winning like 200 tickets. It's like carrying a garbage bag full of paper around with you. And they have 4 machines that put the tickets in. They suck the tickets in, and they just spit out a ticket and tell you how much it is. And then, it's cool because if you have too many tickets. But they have 4 of those machines. 3 of those 4 machines were broken. They have 4 bowling lanes, the small ones, with the pins with the strings attached. But they did have, video and stuff like that. Pretty cool, like lanes. None of them worked. Nothing. People going up there saying, hey, it doesn't work. Sorry, it doesn't work. I mean, I told my kids after 3 hours of spending lots of time with them and hanging out and about to go home, we're all hungry. They're like, can we play some games? Played arcade games. And I told them, I said, look, we've been doing this for 4 years. And in the last 3, none of these games work. None of them. They just take your money. And you have to go to the guy, and some of them don't print out tickets. And I'm telling them, I say, listen, let's not do this. And they're like, no, please. I said, okay. To put $20 in the machine, get tokens. Right off the bat, first 2 machines, they take money, and the games don't work. Another one, my daughter won 40 tickets, and they didn't come out of the machine. And I hate telling, I mean, when you say I told you so, it's never a good thing. Well, I told you so. It's, it's just, nobody wants to ever hear that. It's kind of saying, hey, you were an idiot and you should have listened to me. I mean, that's the way you should. So, but I didn't want to say I told you so because I like when my daughters make their own mistakes. The only problem is they made this mistake 3 times. So now I'm really pissed off. And it wasn't the $20. I'm just like, I'm pissed because, and I won't curse here. But why even keep that arcade part open when you have 20-year-old games that don't work, don't distribute tickets? You don't have them like shut off. You have them on. Not only that, the $20 got us like 2,000 tickets. Sounds like a lot. 2,000 tickets. You go up there, get a prize. It was enough for like a number 2 pencil and a stick of gum. Those are the prizes. But that's a shitty business, shitty operations. And for me, I can never, ever run a business like that and sleep at night, where my sole purpose is to F the customer. You guys know I own a phone store, which is very, very well for us, my small town. Not hands-on, but we sell the best parts. We could sell shitty parts and fix your screen, and you're going to be back in 2 months and complaining. But we sell very, very good parts, which means it's going to be a little bit more expensive. But you get amazing service. And that's what we provide. Everyone in town loves us and always comes back because we don't bullshit them. Anyway, sorry I went off a little bit there. Getting back to the car. I mean, just tell me that you're screwing me with a crazy fee. Be honest. Oh, here's a fee. It was $1,500 in fees. But if you're buying a car, even if you ever bought a car, I mean, you always get screwed. You always get screwed no matter what. There's not one person alive that bought a car at a dealership and said, man, I just got over on these guys. No way. You got effed and you didn't even know it. Your payment for that new car, you're like, oh, it's $300 a month. It's awesome. It's easily affordable. I get the best of that salesman. Yeah, that interest rate's probably 6%, and that loan's for like 97 months. So the $50,000 car you just bought turned out to be $150,000. You get screwed all the time. No matter what, you're going to get screwed. Then you go in at the end, and they're upselling you on anything, saying it's only going to add $1 or $2 to your payment, $2 to your payment. And when you pay cash, you're really thrown for a loop. Because I paid cash for the car, and I said, you know what, let me see your financing terms. If they're really, really low, then I'll finance maybe half of it. They're like, you have to do it for 48 months minimum. I said, what are you talking about? 48? Right away, the guy's like, you know what? Let's do 72 months, put half down. I said, no. I said, I'm not doing 72 months. I said, what's the shortest time frame? If I could do it for 2 years, fine. I have maybe a 1.5%, 2% rate. Nope, you got to do 48 months. I'm like, it's just funny. So I just could picture how many people get screwed during that process. And once they put out the 72 months and it's $300 a payment, now they're adding, special features, roadside assistance, which has anyone ever called roadside assistance ever in history? Have you ever your car was messed up and you call roadside assistance? No, you call a family member. You have a phone, you have a cell phone. You don't need OnStar, all this stuff. They're like, it's $2 extra, $3. You don't understand. It's like thousands and thousands of dollars over the life of the loan. But you always get screwed. Seriously. But buying that $50,000 car it probably cost $150,000. Could have bought, I don't know if you could have bought a Lamborghini. Maybe one with a Dogecoin meme on the hood. We'll talk about that Bitcoin conference later. But the car industry right now, guys, I mean, if you're getting a car, you're really, really going to get screwed. And there's nothing you can do about it. There's just no supply. You're going to have to pay sticker. And if you don't, if you're like, I'm out of here, that car's gone. And one dealership we went to, they said they usually have 350 new cars on the lot. These are big places we went to. That's on average. They only had 20. And they had no idea when more were coming in. And the ones that they're able to see coming in a week ahead already sold before they even get to the lot. And people are driving, this is what these guys are telling me, driving hundreds of miles. Philly, D.C., North Carolina, we're in Florida. to get a car that's in inventory and even to get used cars because there's nothing out there because of the chip shortage. But this is from almost every dealer. This isn't like, oh, well, I went to one Chipotle and it wasn't crowded. No. I mean, I've been looking for 2 months. I probably went to 20, 25 dealerships, calling everybody, CarMax, Auto Nation, Auto Trade, everything. Couldn't get anything. We got lucky. There was just a couple new cars on a lot. I mean, this is how lucky we got. So the Denali we bought, GMC, this is a dealership. We were there for like 4 hours, which is normal when buying a new car or any car. And we got there around, so it was around 4:30, and my wife and I only had breakfast, so we were starving. And I told them that, just talking and going over the story, doing a sales pitch, I said, listen, I'm going to be honest with you. If we don't eat or if I don't eat, I'm going to kill you guys. I said, I'm being honest with you. I said, because I'm just impatient. I want to get out of there. We're buying the car, paying cash. I just want to get out of there, right? Because we've been looking for cars for such a long time, and we're both starving. So, and the salesman was really cool. And he's like, listen, just go get something to eat. We'll take care of the paperwork. We'll do everything. And then when you come back, it'll almost be done. So we left at 4:30. We got back at 5:30. There were 3 Denalis on the lot, and all brand new, all different colors. We got the black one, which is really, really nice, and we were the first to look at all 3. They basically just came in. By the time we came back from dinner, those other 2, all 3 of those cars were outside. We bought one of them. An hour later, they were gone. They were sold off. That's how quick they went. So they probably got there at 11 o'clock. I mean, they shipped in the night before. They cleaned them up, put them out there outside. We saw all 3 of them. We would choose them which one we wanted. We said, okay, let's do the black. And then all 3 of them were gone. Again, this is like 4.5, 5 hours. All of them were gone immediately. And I talked to the man. I said, have you ever seen anything like this before? I said, no. And I've been doing this for 20 years. I never saw a market like this where there's no inventory and everyone has to pay sticker price. There's no discounts. There's no incentives. They don't need it. Because if you say no, you're gone. That car's gone. You're not going to get it. You can't wait. So Ford and GM, the manufacturers, those volume numbers for cars are going to be low. And I said maybe shorts. Again, you want to wait because they both have tremendous momentum for 52-week highs. I never short stocks, not even short, but even buy puts on them with stocks at 52-week highs. You don't want to guess. You want to see a little bit of that trend breaking down. But you know what? These guys may make up the difference if they're charging an extra $1,500 for everything that goes off their lot, and there's nothing you can do. I mean, these are massive fees being passed on to the customer, which I'm sure if they filter down to Ford and GM, that's great. I don't know the structure of dealerships. I don't know how the compensation, the incentive packages work for dealerships. I'm not too sure. But holy cow, demand for cars is absolutely insane. And plants for Ford, GM, most places are still idle due to the chip shortage. There's nothing coming in yet. Still. This is the third month that a lot of these plants have idled. That's great news for CarMax. Told you, Auto Nation, Sonic. I mean, these are companies that actually pull back off their highs a little bit. But margins are going to absolutely surge. Because prices are through the roof. They're charging extra fees. I mean, those are names I just mentioned that focus on used cars, which used car prices are through the roof because there's no new cars and people want to buy a car. And people who bought a new car 2 years ago, this is how crazy the market is. If you bought a new car 2 years ago, it's getting close to the same price. Like you could get rid of that car from the same price you paid for it 2 years ago. I mean, what is it? Like 10, 15% of a car, brand new car, you lose right when you drive it off the lot. That's how much the premiums are right now. Well, you could sell this car almost for what you bought it for 2 years ago. That's how strong demand is. It's insane. What's also insane is the Bitcoin conference in Miami this past week. Wasn't in attendance. Was about to go. I'm kind of glad I didn't go. It's really, really, really crowded. But it's 100% focused on Bitcoin. Again, we have a crypto intelligence newsletter, great contacts, great ideas in that newsletter. A lot going on with Bitcoin and stuff like that we'll cover later. But that conference was sold out. And this isn't like, the Money Show or some mining conference you go to where, you might have to pay $100 or $200 or sometimes you get in free. Marin offered that you can get in for free if, you come through Curzio Research at his conferences where he partnered up with Cambridge and stuff. I mean, these are guys that paid an absolute fortune. They paid $600 on average. Some people pay as much as $1,200 to $1,500 to get in. All the big names were there. Crazy. Emailed so many stories from my contacts, and you know what? I got a special interview lined up with one of the superstars at the conference. The person who managed to get booed when he suggested this crazy idea on his panel, which included the CEOs of the top crypto mining companies, including Riot and Marathon. And this panel was hosted by the infamous, his words, not mine, Kevin O'Leary, who I do like a lot. Today's guest is Frank Holmes, the executive chairman of Hive Technologies, big player in mining operations for crypto, also CEO and chief investment officer of U.S. Global Investors. But he's here to give you the inside scoop of what took place at the biggest Bitcoin event ever. He's going to tell you why he was booed and why the audience then began cheering for him. Pretty wild place. Tough crowd over there. But fantastic, fantastic stuff. And I want you to pay close attention because there's a big trend going on, and if it happens, Bitcoin's going to explode. And I'll break that down after the interview, but just have that theme in your head when you listen to this because it's a fantastic interview, and let's get to my interview with Frank right now. Frank Holmes, thanks so much for coming back on Wall Street Unplugged. How's it going, buddy?
It's great to be with you.
Well, I'm glad you came on, and you on around 3 months ago, but this was important because I wanted to get somebody on that was actually at the Bitcoin conference. I was going to attend it. Very busy on my end, and I'm glad because I have some great sources there to tell me all about it. I want to hear from you, someone who was at a panel, spoke at a panel. We'll go over that in a little bit, but how was the atmosphere? How was sentiment? Remember, we're going into Bitcoin where it's down 40%, 50% from its real top in just a couple months ago. It's still tremendously over the past 6 months. But how was sentiment? What did you see there? How was it? I mean, we're talking about a conference where people paid a lot of money, and those numbers were pretty insane in terms of how many people showed up.
Well, it was insane, and the energy was electrifying. There's some real important data points to recognize. The center where this was hosted was not beside any hotel. It was 14-minute Uber drive if there was no traffic to your hotel. So when you went into this sort of area, it was outside and inside, and you listened to deadmau5 music, boom, 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 so loud, so it was hard to hear if you're outside in the heat. And inside, it was cool. But you had 12,000 people spend $600 a ticket. The whale day was $14,000 a ticket, except if you paid at the door of the event, it was $21,000. And those $600 tickets went for $1,200 at the gate. So it was unbelievable that many people would go that far away from a normal convention center and hotel convention center. And you and I have spoken at Money Show, which is always a spectacular event in Orlando with Kim Giffler's show. I think the max is like 8,000, but it's free. And it's right beside the hotel and the convention. These are diehards. These are real committed Bitcoin enthusiasts. Ron Paul spoke, and he's in his 80s. And, he was like a Michael Jackson performance. But Michael Saylor seemed to be the biggest theme of believers. And today he announces a $400 million financing of notes to buy more Bitcoin. So it was electrifying.
Now, it's crazy because we see the holders where they just, hodlers, whatever you want to call them, that are holding this asset forever, and they say they're going to hold it forever. But I see Michael Saylor, what he's doing, where he's taking out debt, buying Bitcoin. I think it's such a big name in the industry because what everyone wants is to see more institutional adoption. That's going to be great for every person who owns Bitcoin because that's where the real money's coming in. You're talking trillions, right? So, compared to, there is a lot of money in this industry. Yet, and we can get to your panel next, but it seems like every time I heard somebody mention more regulation, or which institutions need to see, right? Because they have a fiduciary responsibility to invest, accordingly for their clients. It seems like the crowd got pissed off at that. Could you explain that theory? Because we all want institutional adoption. They all love Michael Saylor, but yet when everyone puts more regulation into this, or just regulation to make sure your money's going to be safe, it's not going to be hacked, it seems like they don't want that. I don't know what they want, actually, if that's the truth. Maybe you could explain it to us.
There is an audience of hardcore zealots, I call them. And then they show up in Democratic Party, they show up in the Republican Party, and they show up in Libertarian Party. And so there is a small group of very vocal, opinionated libertarians that are there. That's just what is part of the ecosystem. more important is that there's lots of very smart people that attended this event. Many billionaires from Silicon Valley flew in, scouting out, looking at opportunities, understanding what's going on, down to young college kids that made some quick money buying on their PayPal account, and all of a sudden they made thousands of dollars in the past year. So I think that there's something big that is happening. The real regulation and the concern is when you have, I think more concern is G7 announces a minimum tax on corporations, which is basically a creep. It's going to get higher and higher, and that will stifle innovation, and that will stifle research and development. So corporations don't go from one state to the other or from one country to the other. That's socialism, and that's only bodes well for the real intellectual that looks at gold as an asset class and silver. In particular today at this event, the new digital investor that says this is what Bitcoin is to protect you against. I understand that very much so. I can appreciate and respect that. But if Bitcoin is being used for nefarious activities, for buying dirt bombs or for human trafficking or for hardcore drug movement, etc., that's just bad. It's just bad to be with. And that was the big concern coming out of El Salvador. It was great to hear a country's going to do it, but look at the country. What are their policies for that country? And so I hope that it's not for a sort of a cesspool of nefarious activities. I really hope it's legitimate to create jobs, education. So we'll see how that unfolds.
Yeah, I was talking to this one of my analysts, Daniel Creech here, who's a Bitcoin fan as well and crypto fan. You mentioned gold, right? And when we were younger, we listened to libertarians tell you how, destruction of dollar, you need to own gold. And, a lot of people, even to that day, we see people that still own gold. It's the only thing they'll own. And I get it. That's us. But the younger generation right now that you're seeing it's the same thesis, right? For gold, pretty much the same reason why they're buying gold, they're buying Bitcoin for, right? They don't believe it. Same reason. But the excitement around Bitcoin and the potential gains that they've seen, even though it's come off. I mean, again, these kids are out. Most people like to be told a better story than make money on their investment, which is kind of crazy. But I guess is that a real negative for gold? Because how do you get the younger generation to really believe in gold when everything's digital now? Bitcoin is, the option that they're learning about that they see everywhere on TikTok, their social media accounts, on Instagram or whatever, Facebook, Twitter. Is that a bad thing for gold? I mean, where's the excitement there? And it seems like it's almost like a dying breed, which again, I'm very invested in gold. I have lots of investments in gold, but just want to get your thoughts on that. Someone who owns both of these asset classes.
Well, gold is much more liquid. Actually, gold is a lot less volatile. Gold is less than the S&P. We look at the one-day volatility for gold. It's plus or minus 1%, 70% of the time. The S&P is now 2%. Crypto and Tesla are all running around 6% daily volatility. So I think if you're running a diversified portfolio, gold has been a better asset class to manage that. And I think that gold is both central banks. I don't think central banks overnight with the G20 are going to all of a sudden jump into Bitcoin as being a core reserve. But we are seeing a big trend. And but we do know that historically, in the past 21 years, gold has outperformed the S&P 500 250%. Having a 10% weighting has just been wise if you're managing a diversified portfolio. And I think that more and more institutions have been buying into gold as a liquid diversifier that's outperformed the market. It's a new breed when it comes to crypto. I think what the big difference is millennials, especially boys that have been playing gaming, and they've been very good at it, like athletes. They've been rewarded in digital money. They're used to the concept of digital money. And so Bitcoin comes along as a form of digital money and a store of wealth. And I think that it's more appealing and attractive to them. But whereas the big gold buying demand really is love, it's the great love trade I've characterized as, and it comes from China and India and the Middle East. It's much more important that you can wear your gold there. You get gold gifts. You get if you're born in the year of the bull, then this year you're going to get a little gold bull. In wedding season, people, in fact, if they're poor, they rent their gold for a big, looking like a huge wedding. But gold is a very important part of 6,000, 5,000 years of DNA and culture that I don't think is going to be wiped out. And you need electricity for Bitcoin to work. So I think there's benefits of both of them. So I've always advocated a 10% weighting in gold is prudent and wise, and we balance once a year, and 2% in crypto. It just needs to be wise. Now, if you're going to really speculate on these new tokens and new coins, etc., that's a complete different casino type of game. But understanding the architecture and the beauty of Bitcoin, it is literally a Rodin piece of sculpture. It's so unique and special. And then Ethereum is a smart contract, which is the backbone for the growth of DeFi. It's like the Internet of Things. It's the backbone for stablecoin that JP Morgan launches. It is now the growth for NFTs. You all need to have Ethereum as the platform. So I remain very bullish, and that's why Hive Blockchain Technology is the only crypto company mining both. And I mentioned at this conference that I believe in ESG when we launched it. Now, some of these other crypto companies started mining and followed our path, but they didn't care if it was coal, they didn't care where it was from, and now they've had a backlash over that. It's hurt Hive for it doesn't make sense for us because we've always had this pure green energy, and I think that this bodes well for our future. And I believe that if you hodl a green mine coin that has never gone into crypto space, has never been involved in any nefarious activities, it's what they call a virgin coin, in 10 years, it's going to be like owning an Andy Warhol original piece of art. There's only 21 million coins are going to be out, and you're going to have a premier like you have the Babe Ruth a card going on NFT worth millions of dollars. That's what I think is going to happen. So we mine Ethereum Classic, we sell it, pays our electrical bills, and we bank our Bitcoin in Ethereum.
Now, hey, you brought it up, so I'm going to go there because this is great. So you spoke at, on a panel at the Bitcoin conference. It was mining as a public company, all-star lineup, right? You had Kevin O'Leary, hosting the event as moderator. You had Jason Lay, who is CEO of Riot. Then you had Fred Thiel, of CEO of Marathon Digital. And then the most important guest and popular guest, best-looking guest on that panel was yourself, Frank Holmes. And you mentioned what you just mentioned to me, that there should be separate coins in terms of how you're mining it. If you mine it ESG related or just green, it should be a little different from every other Bitcoin or whatever. And you were getting booed on stage. Talk about that. That was the only time you got booed. I thought it was out of playful fun and everything, but talk about that.
Well, the diehards, actually, I found out afterwards, thought I was Hive Software Company. They're just oblivious. Like, these are fanatics. So it was entertaining because I smiled, they're booing. They weren't actually listening. And then Kevin said, you mean to say that you're going to have a coin that is green and it's going to be different pricing mechanism? And Jason said it doesn't matter. You can't get a different price. Well, I believe what I believe. And so immediately he called it a Frank coin. And everyone started cheering, Frank coin, chanting Frank coin, Frank coin. And a Frank coin is what I do believe, but it has the signature. It's only mined green. It's a virgin coin, and you hodl it. And in 10 years, I believe it's going to be much more valuable.
Yeah, and if that happens to come true and come to fruition, I'm going to take full credit for the Frank coin, just to let you know.
I love it. All Franks can. Even the French can.
When you're on a panel listening and, they talked about ESG and stuff and how important it is, which, we'll get to really in depth of high technologies in my company. But also the bigger theme was institutions. And Kevin O'Leary understood that. You understood that. We touched on it a little bit before. I want to get more into it because just a reaction from the crowd when, do they want more regulation? It's like, not really. But yet you need it for institutions. You could see from Kevin O'Leary, who's a person who talks to institutions. You could see it from you as a fund manager person who talks to institutions. Again, we mentioned a little bit before, but I'd like to get that answer for you. What are you seeing in terms of institutions coming to you and asking you about Hive? Because I know that you used to have institutional coverage on Hive. I'm not too sure if you have it now. Is it tough to get institutional?
I just wrote a great report, a fantastic piece of research.
Awesome. So go there with the institutions. So that, I wanted to get to that because I know I'm hearing it even on our end from our security circle where institutions are inquiring, but they want to see more regulation. But if that doesn't come to the industry, it's going to be very, more and more difficult for these institutions to come in.
Well, what was really interesting for me was afterwards finding out, the persons that were yelling, the were confused, and this guy was in that whole crypto ecology system they have, and was going to report to them that we are mining what we're doing. But more important is I had hedge fund managers and I had a pension fund manager approach me afterwards, thanking me, and said that they're going to sell those other stocks they own, and they're buying Hive because they really didn't understand how dedicated and committed we are to this space of an ESG strategy. Like I explained that in Sweden, we go from 20 megawatts to 1 in 15 seconds when everyone is putting on their toasters and turning on their heaters in the morning or at dinner time. And we help the overall system and less capital expenditure. There's no harm to anyone. So there's a strong sustainability for us being in that community, that community calls us and says, guess what? We have another 10 megawatts for you. And there's a scramble to try to get this green energy, and they're giving us because we're good corporate citizens. And it's not costing us a whole lot of money. It's really not a regulation, Frank. It's a higher standard of care. That's really what it is. And I look at certain things could be really regulatory and a burden to it, but this is more about when you have an ESG strategy, is that you're just really trying to show a higher standard of care.
Definitely makes sense. And let's get into Hive, because you are a mining company, and explain to someone who doesn't understand crypto just real briefly, exactly what you do, because people say, well, we mine cryptocurrencies, but what exactly does that mean? And your green initiative was put in place before we saw, the massive push to ESG today with the new administration. Now, every single presentation even on the stock side, every presentation has 3, 4, 5 pages, the quarterlies, right? Dedicated to what they're doing ESG. You were well ahead of this. I mean, this was a big theme of yours before ESG was a big deal. Talk about that, how it relates to Hive, and explain your company as someone who wants to learn about it, was learning about it for the first time.
So the big word is shareholders' rights, and then it became stakeholders' rights. So a lot of this is sort of the socialist mindset, comes out of Europe, goes to England, and comes to Canada, comes to the US, and it gets sort of filtered out to the degree. But there is a big push. And what happened with this whole thesis was really being pushed like places like Norway, which had $1 trillion pension fund, which they made all from oil, by the way. And then they said, we're not going to own any more oil stocks because that's where we made our money, and we're going to be green only. The Europeans are going to raise bonds of 1.7 trillion. $1 trillion is green only infrastructure spending. So there's a big push. They turn around and call up BlackRock and say, you got to be ESG. We're going to yank our $1 trillion out of you to take care of. So all of a sudden they scramble to be ESG compliant, and then CalPERS jumps on it. And so now we have this sort of thing growing, which we saw as fund managers happening about over 7 years ago. We know from the mining industry, especially Canadian gold mining companies, were way ahead of the curve, and they didn't call it ESG, but they call it about being sustainable. And they always found, like in Mexico, they increased the tax on gold mining and silver mining companies. Why? Because Canadian mining companies were much better at clean water for the local people. They funded education much better than any politician. There was no corruption with that. So it's interesting to watch how it's evolving. But we're sensitive as fund managers. Remember, I started Hive Blockchain Technology because I couldn't launch an ETF as Bitcoin ETF, because I recognize that SEC, rightfully so, were worried some hacker gets paid in Bitcoin and shows up on a New York Stock Exchange ETF. So that's why they've delayed this whole process. So I took this knowledge and was a co-founder with launching of Hive Blockchain. And it was an incredible wild run from zero to a massive hero, back to zero, and then now a hero again. And we weathered through all the storms, and we had institutions give us in 2017 $200 million. Fidelity was the biggest player, giving us $100 million. And it was a very simple thesis: green energy only. Iceland we started with, then going to Sweden. Now we've purchased in Quebec, and now we're in New Brunswick. So that is, we believe, is going to become very important long term. We mine Ethereum and Bitcoin. For simplicity for your listeners, every 10 minutes, it's a jump ball. I know you love this metaphor, or hockey players like drop puck every 10 minutes. And there is this run to get that puck or ball. And the fastest computers get it, and they get a piece of it. And so if you do have slow technology, then you're not going to get anything. You're just not going to get a piece of the pie. As more people get faster technology, you get a smaller piece of the pie, and they call that hashing difficulty. Basketball would be, Dennis Rodman maybe not be the tallest guy, but he had a high vertical jump and he had the longest arm. So he got a lot of the jump balls. So every 10 minutes is extremely competitive to get there. So you always have to be upgrading your technology to get a piece of that pie. Today, that pie is only 6.25 coins. What do you mean by that? Well, if we get a piece of the pie to validate the blockchain, that this is an uncorrupted coin, and we get a piece of that, then we get rewarded and shared 6.25 coins. A year ago, it was 12.5. 5 years ago, it was 25 coins. So every 4 years, it halves. Started out at 50 coins reward, went to 25, went to 12 and a half. It's now 6.25. And that will have again in 3 years from now. So the supply is shrinking to the maximum amount of supply is 21 million coins. And if you get enough people believing that this represents value, and there's only 21 million coins, Metcalfe's law suggests it grows exponentially. And that's what's been driving it. PayPal last year allowed anyone to buy a fraction of a Bitcoin. You can't buy an ETF on PayPal. You can't buy a stock, but you could buy Bitcoin. And you could turn around and sell it. And you could turn around with that and go to Best Buy or Amazon and buy a new TV. So it created this huge adoption process. What we've seen now is this past correction from the top is really, it's quiet. There's no big selling. The volumes have all just contracted. And this correction is basically what we call quiet trading. There's no big panic dumping. Even with Elon Musk, all people do is pull back their bids, wait till this settles. And I think this is really interesting and sets it up for the next big leg. We were up 2 standard deviations over 20 trading days, 60 trading days, and 1 year trading going back 2 months ago, if you see it, look in March. And now we've corrected back that we're down 1 standard deviation. So we're getting into that sweet spot if you're a trader that some catalyst will take place and will give you that next big up leg. But you're going to get these virgin coins if you have fast computers and you're there every 10 minutes as a player.
I know you're going to love this next question because real quick before we get back into Hive, just explain the deviations and why that's a big deal and like as a comparison and how it's 2x higher, 1x lower now. Just explain that and why that's such a big deal because that is fascinating.
Well, thank you, Frank, because sometimes I just speak, because I'm so used to talking about it. It's so important to clarify it. Everyone has their own DNA. And every asset class has its own DNA of volatility. And that DNA of volatility is nice because it's just mathematical. So you can turn around and do a calculation, an approximation with a 70% accuracy that over 1 day, 20 rolling days, 60 rolling days, 12 months, or any time period you want, what is that DNA of volatility? So what's interesting is that the gold has a DNA volatility of plus or minus 1%, 70% of the time. So when do you want to buy gold? When it's down 2 or 3% in a day, because mathematically odds in your favor, it will revert back up to the mean. Anytime gold is up 3%, 4% in a day, odds favor the following day it falls because it's up too much against its normal volatility. But the S&P is 2%, so it's more volatile than gold. But most of those talking heads on television will tell you gold is more volatile than the S&P. Not true. Now, when we come to crypto, that's another story. The daily volatility of Bitcoin, Ethereum is 6 times what gold is, 6%. And it's more like Tesla. It's a non-event for Tesla to go up 6%, fall 6%. It's what happens 70% of the time. So you as an investor, an early investor or trader, it's always helpful to respect the DNA of volatility of that asset class. And I write about it all the time. I publish every quarter when I publish about Hive's earnings and I publish about Grow US Global's earnings. I always say, remember this DNA of volatility. And it slightly changes over time because of new factors, but basically it's important to recognize that crypto is 6 times greater than gold.
No, that's great. I really love how you explain that. I mean, because the importance of it. That's why I said, hey, just get a little more detail into that. Because sometimes when we get mathy or stuff, but you show the importance of why that is, and just the comparison to S&P 500 and Tesla's awesome. Now, talk about Hive itself, because
Frank, just to add that most lawsuits against public companies and brokers is because of volatility, and they immediately go to look for fraud or something else. And if you educate people about this DNA of volatility for things there's no fraud, it's different asset classes have this volatility. It's easier to stomach. There's not manipulation of the markets. It's new industries, new breakthrough exploration companies. They all have an R&D companies, biotech have higher volatility.
Makes sense. So getting back to Hive here, one of the things that people say, well, the negatives, right? And I always like when you know the negatives up front for a company, they're usually factored in. But they say it's not as easy to scale because you mentioned like the technology behind it. You have to buy the best computers to mine this, right? Usually ant miners. And we know there's a chip shortage really impacting the auto industry, but so even technology companies as well having trouble. You also have to find electricity that's cheap, right? Which is not easy to do. So you have to be in the right areas. And then, like you mentioned earlier, mining gets more difficult over time. Plus, you're looking at an industry where, margins are, pretty heavily dependent on the underlying commodity, right? So how do you deal with all of that now that you've been through this process? Because Hive, thank you so much. I'm an early investor, thanks to you, in this company where you've been around for a while. This isn't like, hey, let's take advantage of crypto, just like people take advantage of cobalt when it's hot or whatever. You've been in this for a while, so I know you've seen this. How do you address those risks, or how do you limit those risks? Because those are still concerns for a lot of investors out there.
Well, first of all, understand the great biblical story of Joseph and the Pharaoh. The Pharaoh's having all these dreams, and there's tremendous crops, and everything's doing well. And then there's for 7 years, and then it's a disaster for 7 years. And Joseph says, it's simple. Save enough each year for the 7 years. For the 7 years, you're going to have this drought. That's what he's telling you. You need to have reserves. So having cash and having position, it's just sort of prudent to have. And I think that's something I've learned from managing gold funds, because gold fund volatility is greater than gold. And we get these incredible bull markets, and we get these bear cycles, these what we call winter cycles. And you have to have reserves to be able to weather the storm. I think with crypto, a big part is cheap electricity. You have to make sure that you have inexpensive electricity in safe jurisdictions, and I think that helps you weather the downdrafts. In Sweden, our cost of electricity is like 1.7 cents, and we were able to hedge it for a year. So it's inexpensive. There's a surplus of hydroelectricity in that whole region. That's why Google and Facebook are there. And so it's finding those sweet spots so that you can weather the downdrafts.
Yeah, and I'm looking at your website here, bringing it up, just showing everyone, if you go to Hive, guys, just an overview of your different operations here, which is really cool, and just showing pictures and stuff. But no, that makes a lot of sense. So, getting back to the point where you have about, there's probably more than 3, but I know 3 who are on your panel and Mara as well. Is it hard to secure those machines right now? And are you guys in the perfect place for this? Because that seems to be a huge advantage if you're able to do that. And I think that the market, from what I'm hearing over the last months, opening up a little bit more, but it was really tight there for a while, where if you would order some of these machines, you're looking at 6 months or even more of actually getting them.
Oh, and it's not just that. You have to give half the money up front, and they still don't deliver them on time. That's a really frustrating part. We had this time last year with Bitmain. And then we've made it on all our press releases. We talk about this chip, the difficulty since last year on logistics. What we had to do with all of our GPU chips is basically expand the memory card from 4 gigabytes to 8, because the file, they call it DAG file for Ethereum, it grew so big that you need more memory. And so that's we saw just delays and disappointments of sending over our cards, upgrading them, paying the difference, and getting them back on time. And so with that, I don't think it's going away for a while. Some of the great businesses have been cargo jets. I mean, these jets are doing phenomenally well. They fell less than the airlines industry at the bottom because it's the only place to move things around, and now they're booming. And the same thing happened with ships because the UN passed all these green energy on what type of oil could be used for these ships. So half the ships really can't move products around the world. So you have technology shutdowns, you have shipping. The guys making all that money right now are cargo airlines and cargo shipping business. So I think that's just something that there's always someone that wins in this. But for us, we use other suppliers. We've been very vocal about the concerns we have for it, but we're getting our equipment. It's slower than I would like. And I think that this shutdown in China is a flip-flop. They shut it all down, so all of a sudden there's more chips being able to be sent over here, and then all of a sudden China's just going to open up again. It's just so corrupt, the policies over there. The process for disclosure, it's annoying, it's frustrating, but we seem to weather through it, and we're having access to other chip providers, both from mining Bitcoin to Ethereum. And the big CapEx spend, we've spent over $100 million now on chips being delivered to upgrade. And then we're going to now expand all of our Ethereum platforms, probably spend another $100 million over the next year. But as a company, our run rate exploded to a peak. We were doing 180 million. We're doing about exahash of Ethereum mining, which made us the most profitable crypto company. At the end of December, our numbers aren't out for our year end, which is March yet, but I look at the other comparable numbers and I think we made more than other people. So I'm very tickled about being in that position. We'll see as all the numbers come out. But I think it's our focus is we bought a lot of other equipment. We'll have it delivered by the end of August. If all the equipment shows up in time, Frank, please let it show up in time. We'll have 1.3 exahash of Bitcoin mining. This is all public. This is as long as it shows up on time. And then by Christmas time, Bitcoin mining should be up to about a little over 3 exahash. Our Ethereum should be well over the equivalent of an exahash. So I think that run rate where today we'd probably be doing over $300 million and making $200 million.
Wow, that's incredible. That's really, really great stuff.
Looks like.
Yeah, no, that's really great stuff. That's really great stuff. So, okay, last question here. What was the craziest?
Frank, I get peppered by this every day, tweets, etc.
Mm-hmm.
When are we going to get listed in the U.S.? Okay, we've been public. We have filed. We have filed to get listed in the U.S. and it is just a process.
Yep.
And it's just a matter of time here. We will be listed on NASDAQ, and hopefully we will demonstrate what we did last year is the best performing crypto mining company and the most profitable for shareholders, would let us to be the best performing crypto stock.
Yeah, and I don't see it being held up because you have other companies, I think. Are they on the NASDAQ? I don't even know if Mara's actually on the NASDAQ or if I think Riot is, though. But anyway, that should be a pretty simple process. I know you guys meet all the qualifications. Now, last question here. What was the craziest thing or something that surprised you at the Bitcoin conference? Because I saw pictures. People sent me some crazy stuff all over the place. I know Paris Hilton was there. He had Tony Hawk, and again, from Tony Hawk to Ron Paul, right? Doesn't get more, especially a guy who looks at deviation and stuff like that. Anyway, it just doesn't make sense. But what was some of the craziest things that you saw there?
Well, Ron Paul's my hero. I mean, guy's in his 80s and he's up there on the stage like Michael Jackson, moonwalking, talking. The guys are incredible. That this guy could carry an audience, and he was able to cross like 3 generations of ages. Like, he was phenomenal. So I was so impressed with him. I'm 66, and 4 weeks ago I ran the Austin half marathon.
Nice.
I finished, but I was really impressed with this guy. Both how he told his libertarian story. But I think the speakers, I think that I spent quality time with Michael Saylor. He's very focused on his vision. He explained very well that he cannot grow his business faster than money supply is growing. So he's going to use his P&L and Bitcoin as the process. So I tip my hat to him. And he clearly had the most interest in the crowd where I was sitting. And I was about 15 rows back, center ice. And it was just, Michael Saylor's talking, get ready. And everyone's jumping and enthusiastic. And that impressed me. And then when you walk around and you notice billionaire hedge fund managers, billionaire Silicon Valley venture capital managers, high-profile people, in addition to celebrities going out and walking around and telling their story. That was impressive. It had the whole spectrum of diehards to new learning enthusiasts, and I think PayPal probably really helped. There was where you could buy art, and I bid on something, and I was the high bid, $6,000. Oh, wow. Mm-hmm. I thought it would go to 10, maybe 20, because it's an incredible piece of art, the detail, the sculpture piece. It went for 100,000.
100,000.
But I said, this is spectacular. I would have paid up for it. Not 100, but I said, well, some guy with 3 Bitcoins paid for it. There's not a bit. He bought his Bitcoin 10 years ago, and all of a sudden he crystallized it. They would only accept Bitcoin to buy this art. Like, they're the new things that I saw. And mainstream CNBC wasn't there. Bloomberg TV wasn't there. For the biggest crypto event in the world, and they weren't there. But streaming, new streaming, podcasters like yourself, video streamers, etc., they were there. And the media section was large. You just go from desk to desk doing interviews of what your vision is.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. That sounds really, really cool. So, Frank, I love when you come on. One of the ways that people get in touch with you, and I'll bring this up, is by going to your website, US Global Investors. And Frank Talk is a blog that you have that you write about pretty much anything. You're looking at gold, metals, copper. You can talk about Bitcoin and stuff like that. But if anyone wants to get in touch with you, learn more, I mean, outside of going to usfunds.com, how could they do that?
Yeah, go to usfunds.com and sign up for Frank Talk. Investor Alert comes out weekly. We have about 100,000 readers in 80 countries. But we talk about crypto. We talk about gold, luxury goods. This time last year, I launched the only luxury goods fund in America. And everyone, what are you, crazy? What are you, nuts? Luxury goods. Guess what? They far outperformed the S&P 500. The richest man in the world last week was LVMH. So I'm a contrarian type of guy. I'm gold as a contrarian. I have my thesis. Luxury goods, I have my thesis. And Bitcoin, Ethereum, I have my thesis. And I'm sticking to it. So just go to usfunds.com, sign up for Frank Talk, and if you have any ideas that we can improve on it, our YouTube is growing. We have lots of educational videos, only 2-minute videos on Metcalfe's Law, why Ethereum has been growing, outperforming Bitcoin. So that's where you want to go to.
Awesome. Great stuff. Frank, as always, love having you on, my friend. Just a great guest. Always educate, always gets ideas from you, and someone who very, very good friend. Invited me to so many different things. We've been on lots of trips together. So, I just really appreciate you coming on, buddy.
Well, thank you for your support and encouragement, my friend.
All right. I'll talk soon. Let's get great stuff from Frank. I mean, just very smart, data-driven analyst. By the way, guys, next week we're going to have another fantastic analyst on. He was on a year ago. We got some of the highest views from that podcast. Excited to have him back on. So definitely make sure you tune in next week. Lots of ideas he's going to share, lots of research. And, listen to Frank talk about standard deviations. That's why I wanted to explain it in detail for people who don't understand that. A lot of his analysis is based on algos, but also fundamentals. It's not just, system-based decisions. A lot has to do with throwing fundamentals into that system and coming up with something that works. But I just love picking his mind, love his energy. He's a guy that helped me get on the New York Stock Exchange. Again, a few years ago with Go Gold. It was awesome. I mean, I was actually at the top of the, just ringing the bell where they only allow, I think, 12 people up there or something. And, we rang the closing bell, and the opening bell was Blue Apron, which had 500 people there. So it was pretty cool. And I'm glad only 11 people from his office in Texas showed up because I was able to actually go on that stage. And what a great time. We had a really, really great time. But again, just love his energy. I hope all of you, and I really mean this, I really hope all of you love what you do that much to the point where, Frank, when you're over 60, you're still motivated. Right? He's still having fun. He's smiling. He's enjoying it because, Frank's guy can retire whenever he wants. He's done well over his career. He never will because he loves what he does. And before the interview, I said, I want you to focus on one thing. It's mostly when we come into Bitcoin, this is an amazing conference because you had institutions there. And you need institutions and Wall Street to work with crypto, and it's been very, very difficult. Even my industry in security tokens, it's not easy, but now you're seeing it merge a little bit. And I want to bring in Daniel Creech, Senior Research Analyst at Curzio Research, to talk more about this. And the Miami conference, a lot going on with Bitcoin, a lot of volatility, a lot of news out. Daniel, what's going on, buddy? How's everything?
Frank, it's wonderful. It's always good here on the island. Two quick things first. Mm-hmm. So at Frank Curzio on Twitter, that's at Frank Curzio.
Here we go.
The small picture is you at the Go Gold, right? That's you in the suit. That's what you're referring to.
Yes,
with Frank.
That's I'm
cool.
using that picture. Yep.
And number two, hopefully you open with this. What are you wearing? I'm going to need sunglasses in this studio. Look at that jersey.
Oh, this is great. So yeah, the jersey. I mentioned earlier. This is like the yellow, red, and it's, listen, Donovan Mitchell. I don't know if you follow the NBA.
I don't know who that is.
Last night you should have, because it's making me look like a superstar, because he scored 45 points.
Ooh.
They were down by 13 at half.
Right. At
home, Utah. If you watch a game, one of the greatest places to watch a game ever.
Who are they playing?
They beat the Clippers.
Okay.
And they didn't have a very, very good key player, Connolly, point guard. He sat out. And this was, a late decision for hamstring or whatever. So, they were kind of projected to lose that game because, just Clippers came off like just winning a game 7 series. They were down 0-2 and it looked like they were going to get blown out. And this guy came out and just went nuts and scored like 35 points in the second half. And it was just very, very exciting. And that's the jersey I have on. So nobody can say it's like the timing couldn't have been better, man. The timing couldn't have been better. So
I have to say, if it didn't say Utah on the back, I would have no idea whose team that is.
All the jerseys are like that, though.
I would have guessed like Phoenix Suns or something like that. I get it. Maybe it looks like a sunset or a sunrise.
Well, isn't Phoenix Suns like they have Valley on it or something? They have something.
I don't
like
know what their current is,
but yeah, I kind of like this jersey a lot. I don't know. I like
anyway, it cracked me up. I saw it and I was like, I don't even know who that is.
Chris,
anyway.
Thank you so much. He's a subscriber to everything, and he's goes to a lot of conferences. We've spoken a lot, and he said, I saw that.
Let's not start a trend here, though, people. Don't be sending. He's a jersey buff as it is. Let's not start sending all kinds of stuff.
I'll mention your name on the podcast, and I'll wear it. I love it. What I really, really hate is I never do anymore, Daniel, is I buy the names or I buy a jersey with a current player's name on it. Because I probably have like 30 jerseys that have that are all on another team,
right? Yeah.
So I'm not going to get a Trevor Lawrence because I live here in Jacksonville. I know I'm an Eagles fan. You guys know I'm an Eagles fan, but I did buy a Bortles jersey because I had season tickets, and that turned out to be a waste because he's gone now. But it's like 2 years that they're gone. I'm like, come on, are you kidding me? So I'm hoping that Donovan Mitchell stays on Utah, which he should for a while because they got a good shot at winning it all with the Nets. But it's pretty cool and. Yeah, send in those jerseys. I'll mention your name. I'll mention your company, whatever. I like it. I think it's pretty cool that I do that and just, personalize this podcast a little bit. Now, let's get to Bitcoin, Daniel, because you have some strong opinions. You also saw a lot of the conference. It was broadcasted. Great. I love the way it was broadcasted. It's very simple. You don't have to click like 25 links. It's one link. You can see everything, and it's just cut up of all the the panels and all the speeches and everything, but, it's pretty crazy. But what was your takeaway just from listening to those speeches? Because I know you follow a lot. You have context there as well. So
yeah, it was cool. And for everybody, it's still up on YouTube. I was actually skimming through some of it today, this morning early. They were broadcasting both days. I think each day was about 8 hours. And like you said, they did an amazing job logistics on stage. We hear that it was kind of a shit show on the crowd side, getting around Miami.
Long lines. I heard this.
And getting in. Lines, yeah. And that's a bummer. I mean, there were several times during different panels where the guest or the speakers would reference the crowd, and they were saying anywhere between 10 and 12,000 people in the room. I didn't really see an overview of the room, but I take their word for it. But, we talked about last week how they were expecting over 50,000 people at the conference in general. So, of course, you're going to have logistic issues there. But as far as the way they ran it was brilliant. You just had some upbeat music, MC come out, introduce the next panel. And Frank, we talked about this real quick, and I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but I felt like you were kind of turned off about how it was only going to be about Bitcoin. And I thought that was a really good point. But I have to say, if I had to use one word to describe this conference, it would be authentic. Because you have the likes of Jack Dorsey, Twitter and Square CEO, and a huge fan of Bitcoin, who, man, was it last year? Or it might have been in 2018, but he came out and said, hey, I'm buying X amount of Bitcoin every month just because I believe in it. Well, obviously he's a billionaire anyway, so he doesn't need it, but it's amazing. Ron Paul was a speaker there. Michael Saylor, Frank Holmes, as you mentioned. Yeah, but what I thought was so authentic about it is while it was only about Bitcoin in the sense, it wasn't everybody on the same page. You would literally have a panel go out there and give their opinion. Next panel would come on. Hey, what that guy just says is bullshit. And you have to respect that. I mean, at least I do. I think you should respect that because some of these people, think Bitcoin is going to replace the US dollar. It's going to replace the Fed. Now think about that.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ruin that real quick. You don't ruin the Fed with technology. That would take a war and an army. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying Bitcoin won't get an army at some point, but that's not how you tackle the top. But a lot of people don't. They said, no, it don't need to replace the Fed. It just needs to keep doing what it's doing. It gives everybody hope. That is the big takeaway. This is a global story. Whether you like or want to invest in it or not, that's fine. But the stats they give on El Salvador, which is a good segue because we can get into them making history. But when you talk about the people that are unbanked, that don't even have the option to have a banking system, depending on where you live in the world, and then on top of that, you're subject to government controls and inflation and your currency going through the roof or down the toilet overnight, basically. When that's your normal, an internet connection is hope for you. And I buy into that. That doesn't mean that it's going higher or lower. It means that this is a lot more than just money. And that's pretty cool to me. And I thought the conference did an excellent job getting that point across.
Yeah, and just when I say it's a Bitcoin, for me, I go to conferences because I like to look for new ideas. I like to just network and stuff. And it would have been a good time to network, but it was just, I know it was really, really crazy there. And we just officially got our financials audited, which took a very long process. And yeah, the week was kind of crazy for me, but just the amount of emails that I got in were incredible. And when I say it's only Bitcoin, one of the biggest things within Bitcoin, I thought, is outside of, the idiot that came on stage and ruined one of the panels and stripped off his clothes. He was wearing a shirt with Dogecoin on it. He's like, yeah, it's like, man, I mean, you really want to take this seriously, guys. That's not a way to do it. But and Mike Kaiser saying, fuck Elon and going crazy.
That even shocked me. That caught me by surprise. That was funny.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Saylor was a huge rock star. I heard that from so many people, which we already knew, but just massive fan. But I don't know if I get that though. I don't know if I get why they love Michael Saylor. I get it because he's buying Bitcoin, but You have to realize it's not really him who's buying it. He's an institutional investor. And he's an institutional investor investing through his company MicroStrategy. Yes, if you ask most hodlers, they want more institutions involved, right? I would think that they want more institutions involved, but yet that requires a little bit more regulation, not totally regulated, but it does require where you need to know where your money is. You're not going to lose it. You're just not going to get taken, right? I mean, these are institutions that operate with a fiduciary responsibility for their clients, and they manage trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars, okay? So it's, if you say you want more institutional ownership, they boo you, but yet they were cheering Michael Saylor, who's an institution. And I have to say this for all the Bitcoin diehards out there. Okay, I'm a Wall Street guy. This is where I grew up, 25 years, worked on Wall Street. I'm also a crypto guy. Established the first cybersecurity token. It trades on a foreign exchange that's available to retail investors. I understand both industries. And I always understood that in order for this to work, you're going to have to merge. There's a reason why Bitcoin surged. Bitcoin surged because it wasn't a whole bunch of more retail investors wanted to get in. It is because Twitter, PayPal, you saw all the news, MicroStrategy. You're like, wow, this is really getting adopted by institutions. And if you want to see the price go higher, if you want it to go, and the target's out there, 300,000, 500,000, it's not going to get there without institutional support. I know you might think I'm full of shit. You might be like, no way, we're strong. You're not. It's not. You just don't have that big of a market. I mean, to put in perspective, anyone who thinks otherwise just doesn't understand math. And right now, it's a $650 billion market cap for Bitcoin. $650 billion market cap. That's huge. The NASDAQ, which is filled with America's biggest technology companies, the trillion-dollar companies, it has a combined market cap of $13 trillion. You need to get institutions in here, like international brokers just announced that they're going to start trading crypto this summer. It is a summer, isn't it? Yeah. They said this
officially.
Summer. So I don't know what that means. Does that mean tomorrow? Does that mean end of summer? I don't know. But it's this summer. But they just announced it, which is great news. But you need that because that's where the volume comes in. That's where even more liquidity. That's when this market really, really explodes. And that's the thing I didn't get, Daniel, because they're so quick to say, we love Michael Saylor, but when there was times when you talked about institutions, and there were a lot of institutions there, by the way, it seems like they're totally against that and saying, no, well, we don't want, Wall Street, or they still, they still hate Wall Street and those institutions. But again, you need both of them. You need to merge this, and it's coming, and you see it a little bit. That's why we're seeing this move. Again, it pulled back a little bit. But that's one of the things I don't understand. I don't get. And for all the Bitcoiners out there and even the Wall Street, you want to explain it to me, fine. But why boo the institutions? And knowing that in order for them to come in, you need a little bit more regulation, just a little bit. Not freaking, we're going to come to your house, no worries. But it's got to trade like your average brokerage firm, where you're getting statements. The IRS knows if you have capital gains taxes. There's no bullshit, no black market. You're not going to get hacked and things gone forever, where you have insurance on this thing, which you have through brokerage firms. But, that's really important. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think what is so amazing to me about Bitcoin, and I haven't come to the light or seen the light. I've been a fan for a while. Obviously, I wish I would have bought more as it's gone up. But what Bitcoin does on a number of different topics that I think is just, I think it deserves a lot more credit than what it gets. It makes you have a conversation. So just like with you, it makes you have a conversation about institutionals and why you need this big money, Wall Street, and a blend of regulation and kind of total just, hey, if you screw up, you're on your own, this individuality. It also, Frank, here's why I think I've figured this out. I think I know why gold bugs are so pissed off at Bitcoin. Because they've really gotten their thunder stolen on an important topic. And I'm not talking about price. I don't care if an ounce of gold is more or less than Bitcoin for this sake of argument. What Bitcoin does, do you know how many times, I wish I could print out a transcript of everybody there, Frank. Mm-hmm. But the over-under on the words inflation and the Federal Reserve has got to be 50 to 100. Well, that's too big. That's too broad. Let's say 50. Mm-hmm. So gold bugs, and what I mean by gold bugs is, in this day and age, Frank, you're allowed to make up things and new definitions of everything between men and women and anything else you want. So I'm going to now. When I say gold bug, I mean the people that are bullish on gold no matter what, and it's gold only. So they're the types that, hey, the world isn't big enough for gold and anything else. It should just be gold. That's the only store of value. That's the only sound money. That's fine. I'll concede that to move on. What is the gold bug's biggest enemy? The Federal Reserve. And they are dying to get people to look and say, hey, check this out. Look at what goes on and look at what a silly fraud BS institution printing money. This is terrible for everybody. They pound the table trying to get you to pay attention to that. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, all right, yeah, paper money, not back. Okay. But then you come along with Bitcoin and people are like, wait a minute, what's the Fed do? And if you're a gold bug, you've been preaching this 20 some years, at least since the 70s, so longer than that. And now Bitcoin is stealing your thunder. It is making people question how the system works, who the system benefits, and who's in charge. And I think that Bitcoin has brought that conversation into the light better than gold has. And I think that's hilarious. But
why do you think? Why do you think that?
Because now you have a movement where you have all demographics and all age groups. So everybody from your teenagers and 20-year-olds up to, how old do you think? Well, Frank Holmes is in his 60s, you said?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Not that that's old.
I mean, he
looks well. He looks good for 60s.
Yeah, he looks good. And, he's a
anyway.
Good guy. Yeah, he's
but my point is, so you have teenagers to 60-year-olds. Mm-hmm. Hell, how old is Ron Paul? He's got to be 80s.
I didn't see his speech. Frank sent it to me. I didn't get it. He said it was, he goes, you had to see him on stage. He was fantastic.
He was. Going crazy. I didn't see it all, but if you know anything about Ron Paul, you know he's going to talk about freedom, and he's going to work Bitcoin into how that works with freedom. But so you have this age span of teenagers to 80-year-olds. You have all kinds of people from every color and walk and way of life. And they're all talking about inflation. Is it good or bad? Who does it benefit? They're all talking about the power of the dollar, the store of value. I know you like to push back on that because it fluctuates 30% in a week. How in the hell can that be value?
Yeah. But that's Michael Saylor's argument. It's a store of, I don't get that argument. It's a store of value. And I mean, store of value.
But the fact that everybody can turn to that and start questioning that, the fact that all walks of life and all demographics are talking about the Fed, inflation, interest rates, and what it means for economies, I think is a great thing overall. Of course, you're going to have people that agree to disagree. You're going to have people on both fringes. But man, I got to tip my cap to Bitcoin because I think it does a better job at bringing it into the forelight or the spotlight than gold has. And again, I think the world is big. I'm a lazy investor. The world is easily big enough for both. Have exposure to both. You know, you have a tailwind for both assets. But yeah, I think the conversation is amazing, and that's only going to grow. And I think that's really, really powerful for everyone.
It's tough for the younger generation who's growing up in digital to really look at gold as a better option. than Bitcoin. But the biggest thing here, Daniel, of everything that you said, I mean, there's one thing that Bitcoin has that gold will probably never have is the massive volatility and the greed factor of people that they could actually be. Most people, you know, even when I take polls online, and again, it's not like I have a massive presence on Twitter or anything, but you're looking at a lot of these people aren't holding it for a store of value. A lot of these people are holding Bitcoin because they want to get filthy rich.
Yeah.
Okay. And you have that greed factor where you're seeing this thing go up tremendously and it's in the news every single day. And yet, what do you have with gold? Okay, well, you know, we're going to put a stake in the ground here, and then we're going to drill, and we got all these junior miners who never, ever have plans of developing these things, and we're going to try to sell them to the majors, and, you know, and they're not going to produce for 12, 13 years, you know, just on the stock side, right? I mean, if you're buying the actual, you know, Bitcoin and you're buying gold as a currency, it doesn't have the fluctuations. It doesn't have the excitement. It doesn't, like, people don't want to buy. It's funny because these Bitcoin people are buy and hold forever. And so are the gold bugs. But if you saw Bitcoin going up or like 1% or down 1% and traded like gold, you wouldn't really be seeing this many people in it. And that's why you're looking at the Wall Street bets crowd and the Reddit crowd. It's just, you know, what's going to be the next name, right? So everybody wants to know. I mean, now it's Wendys that's taken off all of a sudden. It's Clover. It
wasn't just because Wendys started breakfast. That's not why it went up like 20-some% the other day.
No. But
I'm sorry. Go on. I'm kidding.
It's just funny though. So for me, the greed factor, the volatility, and the fact I think that they have something, or they feel like they have something to their own, right? Because I think everybody, I really believe this deep down, and a lot of people are going to disagree with this, but deep down, by yourself, look in the mirror, you all want to be in the in crowd. You all want to be connected where you're at Goldman Sachs at the top, where you're getting stuff, or at Andreessen Horowitz, where you're they're investing in cryptos and they're getting them for like 5 cents, or you're at, you know, SPACs, which they're buying for $1 and you're buying them at 10 and they go up to 15 and, you know, they don't even care if it crashes to 8 because they're making a fortune. You want to be in that crowd. And I feel like, you know, it's very, very difficult. It took me a long time to actually be associated with that crowd. 25 years I've been doing it. I still don't have, you know, full access, but I have a lot of access to a lot of cool things and deals, especially through Curzio 1. But Bitcoin is something that they could say it's ours. Like, this is us. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's something to be said for that. But the similarities are it's amazing, the similarities, right? I mean, they both hate the Fed. You're using this because they don't believe in fiat. They're both buy and hold forever crowd. I mean, they both believe in the same thesis, but yet a lot of these people still hate each other. And I don't know. I don't know what's going to turn gold around. I think gold's going to go a lot higher. There's money to be made. But I don't know if we'll ever see the Reddit crowd get into gold. I don't know if we would ever see that. I really don't think we would see that. I could be wrong, but I don't think we'll see that.
Yeah, I mean, if they're driven by price fluctuation, and I'm not saying I know what they're driven by, but it could easily happen because you can move junior miners. Hell, Frank, you can get them to go up 500% in a week if you get enough people behind it. Low volume. You don't even need high short interest for all you guys out there. You just need a small float. So if you can do that, hell, if making money is the goal here, they could easily push stocks like that around. But that remains to be seen. I would caution on saying they never will. Because, again, everybody likes volatility. Everybody likes to see something you buy go up several 100% right away. Hell, that's like a lottery ticket. But we'll see. I hope everybody listening out there, just don't think that you have to take one or the other. Just gain exposure to both. Like I said, huge tailwinds from inflation pressures and the Federal Reserve and governments all over the world to really help these assets go higher. And, you know, have fun, you know, pick your sides, whatever, but just have exposure to both, I guess, is the big takeaway.
Especially have exposure to gold right now, because gold, if you really own Bitcoin as a store of value, which I don't get, all right, store of value is something you keep it there, you know, it's not going to lose its value. It just fluctuates too much. I'm not saying it's not an alternative currency. You can't use it for other things. It's an alternative to fiat. I'm not saying, you know, there's different reasons of buying it. But gold right now, if I explain it to you, and I'm not a gold bug, okay? I've been, you know, granted access to a lot of amazing people, spoken at a lot of mining conferences. Right now is one of the greatest times to own gold that I've ever seen, only because the Fed, you know, are just totally oblivious to what's going on in the world, where we have inflation absolutely everywhere. So inflation is at a 25-year high. Core inflation is at a 25-year high. Okay, we all see inflation. We all know it. The Fed says no inflation, right? We have GDP growing at 7%. We have the markets at all-time highs, home price to all-time highs, commodities in near all-time highs. We're seeing everyone raise prices across the board. We've seen inflation, it's just a total inflationary market. But the Fed's keeping rates at zero and easy money, easy policy. We have 9.3 million jobs that are available, and 9.2 million people who are on unemployment. So our unemployment rate is zero, right? So you hit all your targets that you needed to hit, but yet they're keeping this policy in it. So what does that mean? It means that right now, the real interest rate, and all that means is you account for inflation. And now that inflation is going higher, if you subtract that from just the real, which is zero, which is already zero, we've had negative real interest rates for a while. And that's a big point for gold, for you to own gold, because, why are you going to store money in gold when you could store it in your checking account or someplace else and earn a high interest? But now interest rates are zero, and they've been zero for a while. But now that you've seen inflation go up, the real interest rate is trading at its lowest level since 70s. And the Fed's going to maintain this policy for a while, which means gold is a fantastic, fantastic option. And you're going to see more institutions go into it. You're going to see prices go up. You're going to see more projects get developed. I see price at 2,500 just at right now, just based on, you talk to any gold bug, they mention the real interest rate. Not that that's the end all. You have to look at the dollar as well, because we had negative real interest rates since the credit crisis, and we saw through 2011 and 2012, gold did great, and then all gold stocks especially got smoked for 4 years, and now they've come back. But right now, the conditions have never been better for gold, and I think you're going to see money flow into it, so it's a good time. But again, I just don't see the Wall Street bets crowd flowing into that, and that's, it's a shame, because I think they could make a lot of money off of it if they just didn't have this wall in front of them and saying, I don't give a shit. There's nothing. It's like a religion, right? It's like, if you're a Democrat and you have a Democrat and Republican, no matter what they say, they're not going to switch sides, right? There's nothing you could say. There's nothing you could say. A Democrat could say Republican could say Democrat, that's going to be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I'm going to be a Democrat. I'm going to switch. No, there's nothing you could do, but this is about money. And if you want to make money, gold is really a good option right now. And I think Bitcoin at these levels, hold it at 30 with a lot of bullshit news. What was some of the news that was out this week, Danny? It wasn't just, Salvador and it's all over CNBC now, but, we saw some positive interactive brokers coming out, and we're seeing that hack where, people were worried, wow, how easily the government got the money back. Maybe this isn't decentralized. No, it is decentralized. We found out that they got money back, whatever. So you removed the overhang from Bitcoin going from 38,000 to 30,000 on the news stories, which really don't exist. It makes me think we're pretty close to the bottom, and you're seeing that today with, Bitcoin up 10%.
Yeah, I don't want to act like we know the exact workings behind it, because we don't have all the data and stuff. So why did Bitcoin drop 10% the other day? I don't know. But to your point, it did seem like the media was pushing this narrative that, so we talked about this a few weeks ago, the Colonial Pipeline got hacked. Basically half of the oil and fuel for the East Coast was down for a few days. We even saw shortages here in North Florida because people were silly, but that's okay. We're over that. This all came back to in the media because Colonial paid ransom, and now the Department of Justice did a press announcement or press briefing and said, hey, we've gotten the majority of this back. So immediately you saw headlines about how they hacked somebody's wallet. Okay, and that's the big thing. Bitcoin is transparency, but it's supposed to be unhackable. And what actually came to find out is, and this is on Zero Hedge, and for all you listeners, if you're not checking Zero Hedge amongst your other websites, you should be. But basically, the DOJ, Department of Justice, had a subpoena for an exchange in Northern California, Frank. Mm-hmm. That's the United States of America for all you out there listening. Northern California. These brilliant cybersecurity guys apparently hacked the Colonial Pipeline and then put their Bitcoin in a custodial. It'd be like going on Coinbase, opening an account on Coinbase, buying some crypto, and leaving it there. Mm-hmm. If you don't think the IRS or anybody else can go to Coinbase and say, hey, give me your list, you're going to be in for a shocker someday. So if that's the reason why, which it very much looks like, that Bitcoin was selling off, if you believe in Bitcoin, you ought to be buying Bitcoin hand over fist at these levels. Because if that pushed it down 10%, that's a non-event. That's not even accurate to say that they hacked a wallet or anything like that. So you have to be more bullish on that, in my opinion, if you got caught up in the emotions behind that. The other cool thing, real quick, is Michael Saylor, MicroStrategy, they filed for a $400 million offering earlier this week as Bitcoin was going down. They're raising more bonds to buy Bitcoin today. He talked about that a lot on stage, so I encourage you to go watch it on the YouTube replay. What happened when Bitcoin dropped, Frank? What did MicroStrategy do? They bumped the offering from $400 million to $500 million. That takes balls, right or wrong, depending on what happens. That's that I have to. I don't know if they
actually bumped it. I mean, what happens?
Well, I guess, like you say, everything gets oversubscribed.
Yeah, I mean, you get oversubscribed, and then even when they announce an offering, they say, it could take up to an extra allotment. So, if you have a good offering and it's an interest rate, it has nothing to do with Bitcoin. If you have a good offering, they don't think MicroStrategy is going out of business, so you can get a good interest rate.
Absolutely,
they can raise as much money as they want. It's not necessarily people agreeing like, hey, okay, I want you to buy more Bitcoin. It's it's their balance sheet, and it is coming down a little bit. They're still up overall on a cost basis, but I'm not too sure if it had like that reflection where, they're raising even more, but it's good for them because now I think he's putting the whole thing into Bitcoin. I'm pretty sure that whole offering, and it's even more now. But I got to tell you that I just think really quick on this last point, there is a big push by some very big institutions, investors to push Bitcoin lower. I mean, just the shitty news that's been coming out. Okay, if you're going to push it lower, it's overvalued. It's whatever you think governments are going to come in. I mean, the China news is total bullshit, right? Because China was never going to adopt them. They 2017 that they just regulated. They said no one could trade on crypto exchanges anymore. I mean, that was everybody knew that. I mean, China is not factored in, right? So everyone's like, well, China, the biggest market, they weren't factored in. Okay, they're not the biggest market. They're the biggest growth market, lots of people. However, when it comes to cryptos, no, there's other big markets. And then you see this hack news, right? Which again was bullshit. It's just people were saying that, wow, this isn't decentralized maybe. And Bitcoin, people who are really diehards are like, are you kidding me? And it turned out that was a BS story. But there's a big push someplace from someone or some institutions to really push it lower. And I think they're done. I mean, what's the bearish case now that hasn't been mentioned on Bitcoin? I mean, it's you have the Coinbase IPO and everybody's excited, and I get it. And you had it at 55, 60,000. But now you look at Bitcoin conference where you had a lot of institutions, a lot of them are asking questions. They want to invest in this. I don't know. It feels like a bottom. I said that to you yesterday. It feels like we're closing in on a bottom when 2 weeks ago, a week of like a conference like this might signal a top. But just with this BS news that's coming out, if it's real, then it makes sense, fine. But these are like made up stories trying to push the price of Bitcoin down, and it's working for a little bit because there's a lot of leverage in the market. But I think you're really going to see it come back here.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. I'm still waiting on. With the massive volatility, so we've talked about this in the past, this is good for, Galaxy Digital and Coinbase and stuff like that with the volatility. I'm still waiting on a big name to come out and say, Carl Icahn has flirted with it. There was articles about him putting up to $1.5 billion, $1.5 billion into crypto-related assets. Ray Dalio has admitted he owns it personally. We're waiting for Bridgewater, the fund he controls. The easiest thing, Frank, would be, if you're trying to come out of somebody's most amazing shadow, and I'm going Warren Buffett here, wouldn't it be awesome to see Berkshire Hathaway just hint at the new managers that are going to take over after Buffett and Munger?
It'll never happen.
I know, but still, it's fun. Let me dream, Frank. Quit shooting my dreams down right away, okay?
Yeah, just too fundamentally driven. But, what you're going to see is these guys load up on Bitcoin before they mention it, right? So
absolutely.
That's typical.
But that's what I'm waiting on. I think the short term, I think it's bullish with you. I agree with you on the fact that there's a lot of negative news and it's holding 30,000. I'm actually surprised it didn't go back to its old high of 20,000 just because, anybody can pick a number out of the hat and draw lines on a chart. But I do want to see who's the big name coming out that is going to really move a market, whether it's a new CEO converting some of their balance sheet to it or a hedge fund guy like Carl Icahn or somebody of that nature. But somebody out there is taking advantage of this and going to make a lot of money. And there's still a lot of excitement going on in the space, and it will going forward.
No, and the last thing I wanted to talk about here, just very, very quickly, because it's in the news and going crazy, is the Wall Street bets thing. And I think everyone's looking for what's going to be the next name, right? And getting on, whatever, how many, 10, 12, 15 million, whatever it is now, how many people on Wall Street Bets, which is the Reddit blog, and all these guys get together. But, everyone's really searching for, okay, what's going to be the next one? And I wanted to mention a site for you guys because, and this was brought up by my nephew, who is a millennial. I guess he's a millennial, right? So, or X-Gen, right? What is it? What is it called? Gen V. Yeah. Okay. Gen Z. Yeah. I get mixed up, so I got to get corrected sometimes. Thank you, Erica. But it's so he's the one that follows blogs, looks at all this stuff. I mean, these people, that's all they do is the YouTube generation. It's cool, but it's called swaggystocks.com. And it's kind of a crappy website the way it's laid out, but it tracks real-time sentiment and Wall Street bets, its sentiment trends, and, you know, does it all through algos. And it's really cool because I looked at it 2 days ago, and I'll bring up a picture here, you know, if you're on our YouTube page, and it had Wendys on there, right? So basically, it's tracking the amount of posts, amount of mentions, amount of everything, and then also, you know, just you know, ticker sentiment, you know, what they're seeing the most on Wall Street bets, which, you know, Clover's on there, obviously, Clean Energy, you're seeing a lot of these names, GameStop, obviously, you know, the Teslas, Tilray, Wendys, all these names, and you see it, they have all charts and figures and stuff, but I thought this was pretty cool to gauge it, and also, you're looking for companies that have high short ratios, because the people who take short positions are usually institutions, and they consider that Wall Street. And when you see that, if you get enough people to buy and push this thing up, you know, they're short. In order to get out of position, they have to buy it back. And as it goes higher, their losses are unlimited, because it can go to, they shorted it at 10 and go to 20, 50, 100, a million, right? So it's unlimited, where it could just wipe you out. So it's forcing them to cover, which is why you saw GameStop go through the roof, AMC go through the roof, because all the shorts got destroyed. So looking at the short positions too and having that, but Swaggy Stocks was kind of interesting. I thought you guys, you know, I like throwing out some sites, and I'm just checking out, looking at it, and also, you know, just running screens and short side and everything, because, you know, look, a lot of this is BS. A lot of this is a pump and dump, Daniel, right? We're seeing it, but it's not even like a pump and dump. They're not even dumping it, right? It's more like pumping it and holding on forever, I guess. That's a trend. But when you're seeing gains of 200, 300, 400% in weeks, you know, one, you could just say, wow, those guys are idiots. Or two, you could say, okay, what do I need to do to try to get involved in that? And this is some of the things we're doing in Curzio research, but just looking at, you know, different blogs, different ways that you can look at this. And it's getting to the point where you're seeing a lot of institutions even do that, because these moves are major. What is it? AMC, $30 billion company? I mean, yeah. You're talking about, you know, Dogecoin went to $90 billion. This isn't like, oh, you know, look, when you see those kinds of numbers, believe me, institutions are going to get in. They need the piece of the pie, right? That's how they make their money. But that was a cool site to mention. And Dan, I know you've been talking a lot about this too, but it's just, I don't know if this is going to stop anytime soon. I guess this is a norm, and the SEC is not going to do anything because it's pure manipulation, right? So everybody buys stock, forcing this. You know, just it's crazy. Like if I did it on my end and bought a huge position and then promoted it every place in the world and said this thing's going to go through the roof, and it went higher, and I sold it, the SEC is going to knock on my door. You do it on through this, and I just think the SEC is full asleep at the wheel here, where how long could this continue, where this is 100% manipulation, which is fine. Everybody's making money. That's cool, except for the short sellers. But there's got to be some kind of crackdown in this, right?
Well, I hope not. We don't need more regulation to crack things down on this, in my opinion. Yeah, it is crazy, but there's a lot of things that are crazy. So I don't think
can't wait till you short a stock, Daniel, that you got big money shorting it, and then Wall Street Pets crowd comes in and pushes it up.
Well, I would buy a put. That way you only lose 100%. I'm a little nervous about going short stock. What's interesting, what's amazing is that you can draw. Okay, so you have to skip the first step. This goes back to Bitcoin. Why does all this happen? Why is this even allowed to go on? And why does all this volatility happen? It's because the Fed is printing way too much money, and volatility or liquidity is sloshing around. So you're going to have a spillover and goofiness happen. But you already have goofiness in Wall Street. You already have scammers and pump and dumpers and all that. What I think people need to pay attention to, especially on the Reddits, is they got to get familiar with a disclaimer, Frank, right? Because you can put anything in a disclaimer. As long as you say, hey, we're long these funds, or we may benefit if the price goes up, or blah, 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 you're good. And I think that'll be the ultimate lesson. I don't look at it as such a negative. It's Vegas. I mean, you can gamble on damn near anything you want to. So if you want to buy AMC because you think you're sticking it to the man, hey, have at it. If you lose money and you start complaining, nobody wants to hear it. It'll be interesting to see how can it continue on. Of course it can, because even though liquidity is coming down, there's still a ton of liquidity. So it goes back to a point you always drive home. You got to be able to adapt. So if you're a longer term investor, the great thing about this is the world is big enough for everything. So if you want to fund, and I'll give you a couple boring picks if you want, just to prove a point. But my point is, you don't have to pay attention to these meme stocks. You don't have to get involved in these. If you want to, great. And then learn how to adapt. Like Frank said, check blogs, run screens on the most shorted stocks. Going back to zero. Why is not Zero Hedge advertising with us yet? I talk about them all the time.
Yeah, you love that place.
I do.
If they came and said they'd offer you half the salary to work for them, you'd leave.
No way. No. Nice try.
You're like, sorry, man, I'm out of here. Tell her there and find out who that guy really is.
But the other day, they ran a great screen and just showed the most shorted stocks. And now Clover Health, I think it's Clover Health, CLOV, it's been up like, I think, 50% in the last couple of days. And that was one on their list. So if you want to trade, if you want to participate, just keep the simple fundamental rules. Don't put in more than you can afford to lose. Treat it like Vegas, have fun with it. But yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, I can't really answer your question. I'm going to be on the fence, Frank. I know that sucks, but it can continue on very long, but it's not a big deal to me. It's really not.
You know what? It's not that I see anything wrong with it. It's got to be a level playing field, because on our part of the industry, there's people that believe that insider trading should be legal. Look, if you have access to information that other people don't, it's because maybe you're doing the homework or whatever. I'm not talking about politicians and they're making a big announcement where they're going to regulate an industry and stuff like that. But there is a lot of people, smart investors, that believe, hey, insider trading should be okay. If that's the case, do it across the board.
Yeah.
But the manipulation has taken place on one end, and the fact that, I mean, short sellers have been doing this for a while, but even on the long end, it's either this is the new way of doing business, or you got to regulate it, or and I hate regulation as well, more regulation, right? It's just, but. So that's where I am too. It's not so much what are these guys doing? These guys are crazy. It's I know if I do that on my end, if you do that as a money manager, and really, they're not allowed to pump their companies and go on different places and stuff like that. And I'm talking about market their stock. They can't say, we think our stock is really cheap right now, you should buy it right now. They can't say that, right? But so it should be level, I guess, and that kind of makes sense for me. But you got to pay attention, guys. These gains are amazing. And Dan, I want to thank you for coming in, always discussing the latest issues on the markets, and we'd love to hear from you. My email is frank@curzioresearch.com. Daniel at curzioresearch.com. Okay, cool. And the Zero Hedge man.
Zero Hedge.
Get a lot of those. Anyway, okay. Thank you so much, Dan, for coming on. So, guys, if you're not on the email list, you're going to get a special offer for a Curzio Venture Opportunities newsletter. And that's my baby. Right? That's my signature product. We launched it about small caps. We launched Curzio Research on that product. I think it was late 2016. Small caps, I take pride in that. That's what I've done at thestreet.com. I've done that at Stansberry. I've done it all the way for most of my career, even when I worked for my dad at FXC. So I take pride in it because the amount of work that needs to go into this newsletter is incredible, because most stocks out there that you're seeing on TV have coverage, institutional coverage, and it's very easy to find out what's going on with the name they mentioned on TV. These are names where I'm the only research analyst on some of these things. So everyone's looking at my research. So in order for me to get that research, I'm visiting facilities, I'm traveling around the world, I'm talking to my contacts, and just using that deep network to find these ideas, right? These hidden gems that nobody's talking about, and getting in them before mainstream media. And we've done a fantastic job. I've done a fantastic job in my career. The performance is great in this newsletter. And we don't offer discounts too often on this thing, but we are offering it just for people on our file right now. So it's a 40% discount if you're interested. And the only reason why I'm urging you, if you're looking to come in, is because there's one stock that I really, really like. I like a lot of stocks in the portfolio that I buy, but there's one name that I just think is incredibly undervalued. They changed their business model, so the company got hit a little bit, but they're focusing and becoming a major player in $2 trillion markets. And I don't want to give too much away. It's a stock that I'm sure you haven't heard of. It's an amazing name. You're starting to see a little institutional money flow into it, and I think there's incredible upside, and that's the experience I want you to have when you subscribe to this newsletter. If I'm giving you, if I'm recommending, hey, you got to buy this stock based on it goes down, you're not going to subscribe to any of my products again. You're going to be pissed off. So when I see something that I really, really like, that I think there's such a major disconnect that you can make not only money in the short term or long term, I want to give it to you, right? That's my job, to make you money. If I don't make you money, you cancel subscription. I don't get paid by any companies to recommend them. So Curzio Venture Opportunities is going to have a 40% discount on it. If you're on our email list, you're going to get an email in the next couple of days. If you're not on our email list, you can go to Curzio Research and get on it. That's our free email list where we have a couple free newsletters and stuff like that, research. Really, really cool. We don't bombard you with hundreds and thousands of emails, which a lot of people do, but we do send you offers from time to time and discounts. And in order to receive it, you have to be on our email list. We're not sending it outside. So just the Curzio Research members, you guys, our crew, our little clan here and stuff like that. So again, we don't really offer it too much at this discount, 40% discount if you're for Curzio Venture Opportunities. Okay, guys, so that's it for me. Have a great week. Thank you so much for support. I know I say it every week. I know I always say I truly, truly, truly mean it. Just amazed how many people listen to this podcast. It's awesome. Love giving it all for you, trying to make you guys as much money as possible, level the playing field this way. We all have access to the same information, same time. And yeah, just so thankful for all you guys listening and also emailing in, even with the criticisms and everything. Again, this was a great, email us, let us know what you want, even guests and stuff like that. We're here for you, frankcurzioresearch.com. And as always, I'll see you guys in 7 days. Take care.